on Across an Arrow, Chapter 2, Out of the Mouths of Babes.
Out in a field somewhere outside of Sweet Apple Acres, two fillies were keeping their distances from each other.
I'm a bit worried about those two.
Applejack glanced between Twilight and Fluttershy, who were both sitting on the ground with their backs turned to one another, paced about 3 yards apart. Both ponies possessed a blush of sorts on their faces, and were also giving each other awkward glances and avoidances.
They just need time, dear.
Rarity herself was looking a bit twitter-padded as well.
I mean, the reaction here is understandable after all. Did you get a good look at him? I must say, Twilight makes for a handsome colt.
Rainbow rolled her eyes.
Isn't there like a time and place for everything? We need to get our game together, guys.
Dashy's right. We need to make a plan and get ourselves over this. Besides, it's no fun when your best friends are being all awkward pants with each other over themselves and they're not selves.
Pinkie seated herself between the unicorn and the Pegasus, and then implemented her as-yet unexplained powers of Pie as her limbs stretched out and roped the two perplexed ponies together.
You two are still friends, are you not?
Twilight looked at Pinkie before giving Fluttershy another glance, and a small, hopeful smile. A few seconds passed before the Butter Pegasus returned the smile and spoke.
I'm sorry, Twilight. I know Dusk is kinda like you, but I should still think of the two of you as two separate ponies. It's less confusing that way.
Thanks, Shy. I can only imagine if the roles had been reversed. If I had run into Butterscotch back in our own world.
Speaking of worlds, I think it's quite obvious now that the earlier mere circumstances theory is thoroughly debunked.
Our other selves are still here, and now we gotta worry about that other time paradox and thingamajigger y'all were talking about. You know, the one where if we meet each other, we stop existing.
I know, right? Here's what we need to do. We need to stay out of Ponyville as much as equinely possible. I'll try to cast the spell again, but I need time to prepare it. Until it's ready, we all need to keep our heads low. That means all of us. Got it, Rainbow?
Yeah, I hear ya. Seriously, this is gonna cut way into my practicing time.
You still on that practicing bit?
Well, I was, before Twilight called us all over and we got caught up in this weird alternate dimension business. And I had a new trick I was gonna try and do, a double rainbow.
She was interrupted as a twin explosion of color occurred in the sky right behind her. Every pony directed their attention upwards as two circles of multi-hued light spread out and covered the blue. Speeding away from the discs was a solid beam of rainbow that twisted its way upwards and away, fading into the distance. The last thing they expected was for Rainbow Dash herself to start jumping up and down, cheering at the sight.
Woohoo! Did you see that? That was awesome! Like, way more awesome than 20% awesome. Man, I am good! Just look at me go! Woohoo! Rainbow!
To no pony's surprise, Pinkie joined into the cheering, and soon, even Fluttershy was jumping with them. AJ, Rarity, and Twilight hung back as they all looked at each other.
This is gonna be a challenge. We got our work cut out for ourselves.
What do we do, Twilight? Back home, Dash is the fastest flyer in Equestria. Now that there's two of them, and though she may seem placated now, we all know that her pride won't stand for that.
One problem at a time, please. Okay, so we know that today is still today thanks to that rain boom. We can put any lingering time-traveling doubts to bed. That said, we need to get out of town first and foremost. Where's a good spot where we can hide?
Oh, there's the old treehouse. We can camp out there.
AJ, you know about the treehouse?
Yeah, so?
Think about it. Anything that you know.
Anything I know, my other self's bound to know too. Well, shucks, didn't think of that.
Oh, we can hide out in Sugar Cube Corner. Or space. Want to go to space? Hey, want to go to space?
That won't work, Pinkie. I didn't think about it before, but this applies to all of us.
She lumped on the ground as the rest of the ponies gathered around her.
Any hiding spot that we can think of, our other selves are going to think of it too. And we can't ask for help from any of the town's ponies. They'll become suspicious.
The party pony hummed to herself before something in the distance caught her eye.
What about those guys?
As one, every pony looked in the direction Pinkie was pointing at. There was a red and orange blur working its way down the path towards them. As it got closer, a noise began to fill the air. The buzzing of miniature wings.
Crusaders!
Fluttershy yelped, her eyes wide as she tried to make out the forms of 3 small ponies.
Twilight,
A wide-eyed Applejack groped for words, a pit having suddenly appeared in the bottom of her stomach.
I think we should get out of here, Twi. I don't think I'm ready for this.
To tell the truth,
Rarity half grinned, half grimaced as she trotted up next to the farm pony, muscles tensing for a bolt.
I'm not sure I'm prepared either. Shall we make ourselves scarce?
Again, Twilight bit her lip as she sighted the rapidly incoming wagon. She had been able to see female Spike from behind a window. This oncoming disaster would involve face-to-face meetings between the 2 elder sisters and their little brothers. She could see the reasoning behind their reluctance, but still. Apparently, she had been too slow. She found herself suddenly scooped up by Dash as the Pegasus angled herself for the nearby tree line. She was quickly joined by the rest of the gang as they fled the oncoming Crusader mobile. Not that it did them any good. Applejack, heading the pack, tripped on an errant rock. There was a general cacophony of noises as limbs and bodies flailed through the air. Twilight herself knocked out of Dash's grasp by a wayward Pinkie Pie. The resultant pastel-colored pile of ponies rested at the bottom of a hill, a face-hoofing blue Pegasus hovering above them. And that's when the Cutie Mark Crusaders caught up.
Whoa, on there! Scoot! Slow down! I'm trying!
The fillies all grimaced as the wagon shot past them, screeching to a halt. A small orange Pegasus panted as he fell off his scooter, wings twitching spasmodically. A yellow earth pony and white unicorn both fumbled at their helmets, unhitching the headgear and hopping out to help their friend back on his feet.
Apple Bloom?
The yellow one turned to look at them. Though the eyes were orange and the mane was crimson, there was no sign of eyelashes or a bow-adorned ponytail. Instead, a faded red backwards-pointed baseball cap adorned the young colt's head. He looked the group over, eyes full of worry.
Golly! Y'all all right? Looks like y'all took a real tumble.
He was joined by the white colt, his lavender hair slightly straight up front, only curling in the back. His voice was quite squeaky as he spoke.
Oh, that looks like it hurt. Here, let us help.
He darted forward and grabbed a pink hoof, pulling as hard as he could.
It's okay.
Fluttershy flapped her wings as she untangled herself.
We just, tripped.
Tripped, huh?
As Twilight eyed the orange one up and down, she had to admit that besides the lack of eyelashes, he didn't look nor sound that much different from his other self.
Must have been some trip if you made a mess like this. We didn't scare you, did we?
Dash landed next to a flailing Rarity.
As if we'd be scared of some kids on a red flyer wagon.
Yeah, imagine that.
Applejack laughed as she got to her hooves.
Tain't easily scared by no...
She paused as she saw her brother sitting right in front of her.
No, pony.
The little horse let his eyes travel up and down the apple farmer's body before he closed his eyes in a smile.
Howdy. Y'all are new around these parts, ain't you? I'm Applebuck, and these are my friends, Silver Belle and Scootaroll.
Hello!
Silver cheered, gaining a slightly panicked look from the dressmaker mare. The scooter pony simply nodded his head.
Why, hello. Yes, we're kinda new. Sorry for the running. We didn't know if you guys were friendly.
Oh, shucks, we ain't nothing to be afraid of.
Applebuck cheered as his interdimensional relative continued staring at him with wide eyes.
We could give you all a grand tour of Ponyville if you all like.
Oh, come on! I thought we were going to try to get our high-diving cutie marks this afternoon.
High diving?
Rarity's eyes went from one Crusader to the next, though they always lingered on the white colt.
Good gracious! Do you three always do such dangerous stunts?
More often than I'd like.
It was now that Rainbow Dash's own eyes became wide as an idea coursed through her head. Quickly, she trotted to the front as she leaned her head down and whispered conspiratorially.
Hey, wanna try for a different cutie mark?
The orange Pegasus looked her over, a hoof going up and stroking his chin.
I'm listening.
Dash, what are you doing?
Just trust me on this.
Rainbow hissed back before returning to the Crusaders.
You see, my friends and I are new in town, but the thing is, we can't just let any pony see us.
You can't?
Nope.
She gave a shake of her multi-hued mane.
You see, there's a few mysterious folk in town. Folks that my friends and I are tracking.
Dash, what in tarnation?
Applejack was quickly silenced as a wing bopped her on the noggin.
We are?
The Pegasus reared onto her hind legs as she struck a pose.
A secret sector of the Equestrian government, ones who track down the ponies who do stuff with no permits. We are Mares in Black.
Somewhere in the back, a unicorn face-hooved. However, the story was enough to sell the 3 colts.
Wow. That's so cool!
And right now.
Dash turned away and crossed her hooves behind her back, a pink pony mirroring her actions.
We need help. If we can, we'd like...
Turnabout pose, a hoof pointed at the Crusaders.
Your help.
How? How can we help? How can we help?
Applebuck's words ran together as he spoke a mile a minute. The blue one smirked as she turned towards her lavender friend.
Agent T, would you care to fill our friends in?
Sure. What we really need right now is a hiding place. Someplace that no pony else knows of. Not your friends and not your family. This is really important. Do you know of any place like that?
The 3 ponies looked at each other, apparently deep in thought. At long last, Scootaroll lifted his head up.
You thinking what I'm thinking?
Yep. The hedge.
I was thinking that too. But that's right on the edge of the Everfree Forest. Do you think they'd be safe?
Sure they'll be safe.
The Scooty pony's eyes alight with admiration.
Well, I mean, come on. They're agents. I bet they face down worse things than Manicores or Ursa Majors. They'll be fine.
Sure. We'll take care of any meanie beanies that try to bop us. If any pony tries to gamble with us, they'll find...
The party pony pulled a pair of sunglasses out of hammer space before setting them on her face.
that the dice are loaded against them.
There was an awkward pause, with copious amounts of staring. She stared back.
I thought there was supposed to be a yell followed by a song.
Twilight shook her head.
Anyway, that sounds perfect. Guys, can you take us to it?
Can do.
Applebuck cheered before all 3 colts joined up together and belted out their newest mission statement.
Cutie Mark Crusader Super Secret Spy Mission! Yeah!
Hey, if you're supposed to be Mares in Black, then shouldn't you be wearing, black?
Oh,
Rarity's eyes darted around in thought.
our suits are currently at the dry cleaners, you see? They got filthy on our last mission.
The little unicorn nodded, apparently satisfied with that explanation.
Gotta keep them snazzy and neat, my big brother would say.
Does he really?
The thought of there being a male version of herself was sending... She wasn't sure if they were shivers or tickles down her spine.
What's your brother's name?
The boy opened his mouth to reply, but then closed it.
I'm not sure if I should say. I don't want to get him into trouble. I mean, he's not in trouble, is he, Miss Agent?
He looked at her with imploring eyes. She had to blink. For a second, that wasn't Silver, but Sweetie staring back at her, begging for forgiveness. This was going to be much harder than she thought.
I don't know, dearie. If I don't know his name, then I can't be sure if he is in trouble or not.
Rarity then brightened with a reassuring smile.
But then again, maybe that's for the best. It's a better idea to play it safe after all, right?
Her brother returned her smile at full power.
Right.
The group was being led by the Crusader mobile, going at a much slower speed than before. Rainbow Dash hovered alongside the diminutive trio, while the other 5 were strung out behind, slowly making their way to the periphery of the Everfree itself.
So, what's up? What do you do in the group?
I'm the speed recognized Sans Pony. You can call me Agent D. I don't like to brag, but you see, I'm the fastest flyer in all of Equestria.
Unbelieving purple eyes bored into her.
No way! You can't be the fastest. That title belongs to Rainbow Blitz.
For a split second, her wings faltered as she dropped a few inches to the ground before catching herself.
Oh yeah? Was he the guy who did that double rain boom earlier?
He sure was.
His face took on a dreamy look as he rambled on.
Rainbow Blitz is the coolest pony who ever lived. He even won the Best Young Flyers Cup in Cloudsdale. Man, someday, when I'm able to fly right, I'm going to ask him to be my teacher.
Dash took a second for that to sink in. She knew that back in her world, Scootaroll hung out around her often. This was the first time she'd heard about flight lessons, however, and if Boy Scoot here had such plans. Her thoughts were interrupted as the orange colt spoke again.
Say, you sure you're not a fan? You sure look an awful lot like him. You even have the same cutie mark!
Really?
She tried to appear nonchalant.
Wow, weird. But nope, never heard of the guy till today. Maybe we're long-lost cousins, who knows? He came out of Cloudsdale, right?
There was a nod as the two lapsed into a more casual conversation, discussing the exploits of her dimensional twin. Back in the wagon, Applebuck stretched his limbs before sighing.
I'm gonna hop out and walk. My hooves are falling asleep.
Oh, okay.
Quickly, he found himself trotting alongside the other fillies, his eyes studying them. He'd never been with so many older girls in his life. Somewhere in the back of his mind, he could see why a stallion could fall head over heels with one, his eyes gravitating towards the pink one occasionally.
Still, girls are icky. I don't need no frou-frou stuff crimping my style.
Then, not for the first time, the young colt's eyes locked on the orange pony. If it weren't for the fact that she was a mare, she was a dead ringer for some pony he knew. Quickly, he trotted up until he was walking alongside the Stetson-bearing horse. She didn't notice until a minute or so later, her green eyes flickering downwards before giving a slight jump as she focused on him.
Hiya.
Hi. Don't be scared, none. I don't have any cooties, swear.
Despite the unease the farmer pony was feeling around her brother, she couldn't help but crack a smile at that.
I'm sorry, Sugar Cube. I'm just a little on edge. Y'all can understand that, right?
Applebuck gave a nod in return. They continued to walk together in silence, their gazes flickering back and forth from each other. At length, he found himself speaking again.
Say, would you think it weird if I said that y'all remind me of some pony else?
The orange equine could feel the sweat beading on her brow.
I don't know. Who'd remind you of?
My big brother, Applejack. He and I work on a farm not far from here, Sweet Apple Acres. We live there together with Red Gala and Grampy Smith. I could introduce y'all sometime if you like. They're right good folks.
There was no answer for a few seconds, the blonde running the names through her head. Red Gala was more than likely Big Mac, though she was having a hard time picturing him as a female. However, what was really worrying her was the fact that her male self apparently still had the same name she did.
I guess. Applejack's pretty non-gender specific, ain't it?
She realized that the yellow pony was still staring at her.
I'm sorry. It's just that, well, y'all remind me of my own little sister back home. That's why I've been acting so weird towards you.
A confused yet curious look spread across his face.
I do? Well, don't that beat all... Hey!
His eyes finally spotted the trio of apples that served as her cutie mark.
Y'all got apples on you. You wouldn't happen to have an apple farm too, would you?
She looked down as she thought fast.
Yeah, I do. It's just clear on the other side of Equestria. Can't even make it to the reunions usually.
The Apple family reunion? Y'all are Apple family?
A few times removed, but yeah, I'm proud to say that I'm Apple family.
She thought she'd been making good progress on dealing with her conflicted emotions towards her alternate sibling. However, she was quite unprepared as the colt galloped up and rubbed up against her in that familiar way. She tensed up as he cheered.
Ha! Yeah! Apples forever! I found a new cousin! Say, cousin, y'all never told me your name now, you know? What you called?
Y'all can, just call me JJ for now. My real name's a secret. Super spy stuff and all that.
Sure thing.
Applebuck's excitement gave him cause to leap and buck into the air a few times as he dashed back towards the front.
Oh! I got a new cousin! I got a new cousin!
And there it was. As she watched him cavort, that emotion that she was scared of feeling flooded into her heart, leaving her light-headed. It was family. She felt the attachment forming, equal parts happiness and pride at Applebuck's cheerfulness.
He's not Apple Bloom. He's a different pony from her. I can't start thinking that he's my family. I just can't.
But her heart stood firm.
We're here!
They finally stopped in front of a rather tall and wide gathering of bushes. Twilight looked over the mass of foliage with a wary eye.
This is the place?
We have to go inside that? Just think of all the debris that'll get caught in my mane.
Oh no, girls, these bushes are just cover. Follow me, I'll show y'all the entrance.
They all watched as the yellow earth pony trotted towards a smallish space between two of the bushes. He ducked down and went inside, seemingly disappearing. He was quickly followed by his friends and one Pinkie Pie who stuck her head in first before entering.
Woo! Spiffy!
Twilight and Fluttershy exchanged looks before the unicorn herself trotted forth. As she got low and entered, she felt a slope of dirt extending downwards beneath her hooves.
Welcome to the hedge!
Silver Belle activated his horn, giving light to their surroundings. It was a burrow, and quite a fair-sized one at that. More than big enough for 3 school ponies. There were already signs of furnishing, a rock table at one end, and a log bench up against the wall.
We were gonna use this as our clubhouse, till Big Bro showed us the treehouse. We haven't used it since. Make yourselves at home.
It managed to hold all 9 ponies at once, with some walking room still. Rarity found herself tisking as she began sweeping the floor.
My, such appalling conditions. But I suppose that's to be expected. With a little bit of work, this will be a cave fit for a king.
As Scootaroll and Rainbow Dash performed synchronous eye-rolling, Fluttershy inspected the roof.
This used to be a rabbit warren, I can tell. The bush roots above are keeping the ceiling in place. We should be safe here for a long time.
Good enough for me.
Thank you, my little ponies.
Twilight turned to the Crusaders.
We'll be able to make our plans in peace here. I hereby declare that your mission was a success.
Yay!
The 3 of them cheered right before looking backwards and lifting a leg to examine their flanks, which still remained unadorned.
Aww!
They groaned, dejected eyes hitting the floor. The sight made a yellow Pegasus giggle.
Hey, chin up, guys. There's still lots of stuff to try, you know. You'll get your cutie marks eventually.
It just takes patience.
The white mare sat herself next to Silver.
And I know for a fact that you've got all the patience you need. Just keep trying, dears. They'll come.
The Crusaders nodded, their mood somewhat restored before they turned to leave. The white colt, however, paused as he turned to look back at Rarity.
Miss...
Her eyes softened as she took in his awkwardness.
You can call me Rarity, dear.
Miss Rarity, you all sure you're gonna be all right here?
Oh, of course, dear. Don't worry about us. We're full-grown mares, after all.
He nodded before pawing the ground.
You know, I'm sorry I didn't mention this before. My big brother, his name is Elusive. You kinda remind me of him. Like, if you were my big sister.
It was all she could do to keep herself from sweeping him up into a hug right there. Instead, her eyes misted over as she tried to bring words to order.
That's such a sweet thing to say. You're a perfect, gentle colt, Silver. You take good care of your brother. You hear me?
The little unicorn blushed before bowing and nodding. With a quick turn, he was up and out of the burrow. The 6 ponies remained silent as they heard the buzzing of Scootaroll's wings start up before fading into the distance. Collectively, they let out a sigh. Applejack leaned up against the wall.
Celestia's main, Twilight. Please tell me we won't have to do that again. I don't think my heart can take it.
Fluttershy trotted up to Rarity, nuzzling the purple-maned one.
Will you be all right? I mean, if you don't mind my asking.
The unicorn turned to face the rest of the group, tears flowing freely.
They weren't our siblings, Applejack. And yet, at the same time, they were. I'm just absolutely torn. Please, Twilight, tell me that you can get us back home. I miss my sister.
Twilight looked around at all the faces present. Each one was beseeching the same request from her, to make things right again. Rarity had joined Applejack in the corner, the both of them hugging each other over their shared woes. Rainbow and Pinkie both looked at the pair, awkward expressions on their faces. And Fluttershy. Twilight had already had her moment with the Pegasus earlier. She tried not to think of it again.
I'll try, but like I said, it's going to take time. The spell took a lot out of me the first time around, and I need to get my energy back.
How long will that take?
The unicorn turned her gaze to the dirt floor.
2-3 days at the least. Plus, I need those items. We have them ready back in our own world, but since they didn't get taken with us, we'll have to gather them all over again.
Then for now, I guess we'd better make the best of it.
The 6 mares all looked at each other, having shielded themselves from a stallion's world. Surely they could keep hidden and get back to their own world without causing a commotion, without alerting their other selves to their presence. Right?
To be continued. Coming up next, Chapter 3 of On Across an Arrow, of a Fruit Forbidden.
Fluttershy hadn't been looking where she was going, having collided with another pony. On top of that, the collision had popped the top off one of the bags, fruit spilling everywhere.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I wasn't looking where I was going.
She immediately set about gathering the loose produce back up.
Oh, no, it was my fault. I was distracted.
Came the other pony's voice, who bent down and began assisting her with the corralling.
Oh, think nothing of it. I didn't mean to disturb you.
No, it's okay. Here, let me help you. I didn't mean to make you spill your stuff.
It's alright. This happens more often than you would think.
If you say so. I'm still responsible, though. Here.
Oh, well, thank you, sir.
Oh, you're welcome, miss. I mean, that is, if you don't mind.
There was 1 apple left, and 2 hooves alighted on it at once. 2 butter yellow hooves.